Alright, so today I'm going to teach you a new workflow that will help you automate your curb ramps inside of Civil 3D using a corridor and one feature line, so instead of having to model them all. So what we need to start is you need at least 2018.2, so a service pack 2, Y2. 2 has an additional new assembly that came out that you're going to need to import, and this new assembly is going to be called the curb and gutter curb ramp, and I'll show you where those are. A corridor that has a curb return intersection, so yeah, we're going to need that, and then your ADA curb ramp requirements that we need. This is the new assembly that we're going to be using, or subassembly, curb and gutter curb ramp. It's basically this nice little curb ramp, and as you know, if you've been using corridors for a long time, there's never been a curb that's been existing in there where you could target the top of curb. So being able to target this really helps us in doing driveways or ramps and stuff like that. But in this case, we're going to use it to do our ADA ramp. So you have all these dimensions that we can do, and you can see here's our targeting parameter. We have a curb ramp tolerance, so we can do that. What we're going to do is I basically have this little design of this pre-laid out curb ramp here, and we're just going to be using one feature line to dictate the elevations. We're also going to be using another tool in 2018 that came out that's called relative to surface. So that way, whenever you update your corridor, this ramp will automatically update. Let's go in to see what we have here. This is my basic file that I have. If you would like this file, you should take our class for corridors, which I'll explain at the end of this. But let me show you some other things that we have in here. So you can see my corridor is automatically rendering hatching. So I have my pavement hatch here, that's the shaded area, and then I have my concrete hatch. I also have it drawing my feature lines, or my lines, for my curb and gutter. That's my top of curb there. My flow line is this lighter blue one, because it's not going to print, and then this last one is my back of curb is the yellow one. I also created this nice little block over here. So this is a dynamic block. If you want to be able to adjust the flares, you can. They're adjustable. We also have this little align parameter, which I'll show you in a sec. What I did is I just basically took the basics from the ADA manual and just kind of created a block based upon those standards so that they're adjustable. And we're only using this case, where we don't have the other types of ramps in here yet. If you guys want those ones, I can show you how to build them. But basically what you're going to do is I'm going to take this little curb ramp here, and I have this little align parameter, and then I'm just going to kind of align him to this little feature that I have right here. Alright, so that's what the line parameter does, because it gives you the nice little, without using the align command and trying to rotate, it's pretty awesome. All your dynamic blocks, you should have that on there. And then basically I'm going to adjust the flares if I need to, depending on where I need them. I would just basically draw it out to wherever it's going to be. And then from there, I'm not going to draw the polyline for you, but the reason I have this block here is to show me where I need to draw my lines at. So I pre-drew the polyline, and basically I went to where my end of my flare is going to be. I drew an arc across, and I basically just snapped to the feature line corridor intersection there, and then I drew one arc to here. I used a second point to do that, and I drew a straight line across the front of where the ramp is going to be, and I'll explain why it has to be a straight line a little later. And then I did another curve on the opposite side. Alright, so now that I have the geometry kind of laid out all I need, I will be converting this into a feature line a little later. I also have the back of ramp here. We'll be using this line back here to use for a target as well. But let me show you where I'm getting these subassemblies from. So inside of 2018, actually, and if you're in 2018, you'll see an update 2 here. You have a little import subassembly. It still doesn't tell you where they're at, but I'm going to show you where they're at. They should be in the same spot for 2018.2, 2019, and 2020. Why they don't install, I wish they were installed right out of the box, but in case they're not, you just go to the insert ribbon for 2019, 2020, and you can even use this in 2018. Just go to import subassemblies. The source or area that you're going to be in is going to be in, let me stretch this guy out. So you're going to look for your C drive, your program data, Autodesk, the version that you're in, ENU, subassemblies, Imperial. And they have them all here. For some reason they're just not part of a palette. So to bring in any special PKT file, which is just a subassembly, even if you've got a special one from SubAssembly Composer, just select them like this and hit open. it's going to put the command up here. You can say add them to a new palette or add them to an existing one. And then I'm going to say let's create a new palette down here at the bottom. And I'm going to call these 2018.2. That's usually what I call them because that's when they came out. And there's about 60 new sub-assemblies that are here. And there's quite a lot of amazing ones that are in here. So you should really try and do that. Bring them in whenever you can. Alright, once they're imported, you'll see you have a whole huge list here. And I'm not going to go into a bunch of details of these yet. I'll talk about a little more of them afterwards, but the one we're going to be using or focusing on is this curb and gutter curb ramp one. So I have this little existing curb ramp here that I'm using for this curb return already in my corridor. So I just want to replace that curb for me. So I'm going to click on that little sub-assembly there. I'm not going to change any of the properties right now, but I will use the, in the command line, you'll see there's an option for replace. So I'm going to hit R, enter for replace. And then I'm going to replace this particular tool. Alright, so it replaced it, and then I'm going to hit the escape key just to make some modifications. You'll notice that these curbs also have the option to have it placed in a different spot. So we've already have this set up because it's an older project, because usually the old curbs you can only attach at either the gutter lip or the back of curb. But now you can use multiple attachment points in here. And if I go into the subassembly properties here, and then I go to the parameters, you can see right here on the insertion point, I have a few little options. I have gutter edge, curb back, and flow line. I'm going to use the gutter edge for this particular option. However, there is a little glitch with some of these. When you do switch them to something like the other side, I just want to make you aware that sometimes they don't appropriately attach to that particular side. Let me switch this guy back real quick. It should be on the right side, and we're going to use the same design that we were doing last time, which is basically just attaching to the gutter lip. Alright, I'm going to hit apply, and then we'll move on to the next little portion here. So right now we have this curb, and we have this ability to target this top of curb with the feature line that we're going to create out here on this corridor. Now what we're going to do is we have a corridor surface already here, and what I want to do is I want to pull the elevations from this corridor surface that's here. Anytime the corridor updates, the corridor surface updates, and then this feature line will update with the next command that we're going to use. So I'm going to go to the Home tab. I'm going to go to Feature Lines. I'm going to go Create Feature Line from Object. So it's pretty standard to what you're doing. I'm going to use this, let's just call this ADA ramp. I think this is the northeast quadrant, and it's road A, B, or whatever the intersection happens to be. You'd specify whatever style you're going to use. I'm just going to use this one. I'll probably put a no plot, actually. So let's go to a basic feature line. That one doesn't plot. Assign elevations, yes, we want to do that for sure. And then there's going to be a new tool that came out in 2019. We're going to say relative elevations to a surface. I'm going to switch this to be the corridor surface, so it automatically updates from that. And then it's going to be relative at 0 at the moment. And we'll explain how to change this in a second. But basically, I need the 0 because I don't want a lip right here. Even though these other ends are going to be the flares, I'll show you how to adjust them in a second. So I'm going to hit OK. We've converted that to a feature line. If you click on this feature line, and most of you who have used feature lines are familiar with the grading editor, notice in 2020 they changed the icon, but click on that little button there. You'll see down here in the bottom you have these new, if you haven't noticed it yet, in 2018 and beyond, this relative to surface. If you have made it relative to surface, you're going to have more columns in here, and this one says elevation derived from, and it's relative to surface, and it says this is the actual elevation that's there. And then on the ends here, on the two little ends that I have for both of where the flares are going to be, I want those to actually be relative to whatever the curb height's going to be, and in this case it's going to be 0.5 on that end and 0.5 on the other end. So this will give us our nice little flare. So basically anytime that surface updates, it's going to keep those at 0 and match whatever the surface is, and it's going to add 0.5 to whatever the surface changes is on those. So that's what relative to surface will do. So let's go ahead and tie in just the curb itself to get an idea of what the curb is going to look like to do the targeting. you can go into the corridor parameters. Most people go to edit the corridor properties, and they'll go in this dialog box here on the corridor parameters tab, and you'll try and track down whatever baseline that you happen to be using, and you see in this case I have a lot. So I'm going to show you a quicker tool to get to those targets. If you click on that corridor itself, you can go to the big button here that says Edit Targets. Then all you have to do is just click on the region you'd like to edit, which is where this curve return is. I'm going to click on that one, and I can see here under my elevation targets, I have this top of curve target. You'll see that my columns are a little different. I usually reorder them. Most people are going to have the group on that side, but I always look at the group first because I'm going to be on the right side. I'm going to look for the subassembly name, and then I'm going to add the target in. So you can reorder those columns if you wish. I'm going to target a feature line, so I'm going to say let's go for that, and let's grab our little feature line there, and we'll say OK, and OK, and now we have the beginnings of the basic curve ramp. There's still a few more modifications that we've got to make. But before I do that, let's just take a quick look at what's going on with that corridor and that surface in 3D to see what our curve is doing. And I'm actually going to grab that feature line as well so we can see that. I like to use this little orbit tool here. You could also use the object viewer. People are used to doing that. I'm just going to go center here, so that way I'll just grab everything, and I'll rotate this guy in 3D. So you can see what that feature line is doing. You can see how it's automatically got the curve return for us. But we need the ramp already built in, because right now we just have the curve doing the depression for our ramp, but we still need to extend the ramp out. So how are we going to handle that? Alright, so let's explain how I'm going to do the ramp. I just need the dimension for where my flow line is going to be, and my backup curve. The reason why is I'm going to use that same feature line that we just created for our ramp depression as another baseline to add another corridor in order to project our ramp off of, which is also why I made a straight line across here, because I want my ramp to be straight. If I had done a curve, I'd get these weird little curved lines coming in here. So I know this is 0.67. So what did I do? As I built another assembly, and let me just go up here and I'll make a quick adjustment and show you what I built. So I have two of them here, but basically I used the generic tab. I used the link width and slope, and I'm just going to adjust this to make sure it's the same size as the curve itself. So let's just go to the properties of this, and we'll make some quick adjustments. So I'm going to go down to the advanced parameters. I know this is a 0.67 on my width, and my slope is going to be 0 because it's just the curve flush, and then I'll put that in there. So basically I've gone in after that, and what I did is I attached a piece of pavement. So most people think they need to build all these custom assemblies, but I always try and use what's out of the box. So the only thing I did is I just went to the lanes. I used the one that everyone likes to use, this lane outside super. Let me just take a look at those properties real quick for you. So let's go to SubAssembly properties, and I go to the parameters. So basically I gave my ramp a width of 10 and a slope of 8.33%, which is the maximum. I gave my pavement depth about 4 inches, which is 3.3. The other depths I just put at 0, and 0 basically zeroed them out, so I don't have a sub base or whatever I want. I just have this one shape. So it gave me my nice little box that I have. And then if I zoom out just a little bit more, I used another piece of pavement on the end here and basically attached it to the ramp and to give me my landing pad. So this is how I just built my ramp. So how are we going to add this in is we're basically going to click on that corridor again, and we're going to go into the corridor parameters this time. You can do this through the actual corridor. You can add a baseline by using this button right here, and then you can add a region in, but I find it faster just to go ahead and do it that one still in the corridor properties itself. So once this guy pulls up, I'm going to use this Add Baseline button, and this is where the new tool from 2017 comes in handy. So I can say feature line, because I have that feature line along the lip. That's going to be where my ramp's going to start, but I only need it to be along this little region right here. I find you don't have to really click the site, even if it's not on a site, and your feature line has to be named. So if you just click this one, if you don't have your feature line selected, you just select this, it will automatically select the site that it's on. But this is the only one I have in here, so I don't really need to do that. I'm going to click OK. And then it'll give me the new little region down here at the bottom. Sorry, the new baseline. So there's my baseline. But I need to add a region to it. So let's right click and we'll say add a region. We're going to use the ramp, and I believe it's the ramp. I can't remember if it's left or right. We'll find out in a second. And I'll zoom down to the bottom. And then I don't need to do the entire feature line. I just need to do where the points are that I need to have the ramp doing, because I don't want the ramp going along the flares. It's going to look really weird. So I'm just going to select this little guy right here, because I don't know the actual stations themselves. And I'm going to use the OSnap here of the endpoint to where my endpoint of that line is on the one side, and then I'll use my endpoint here to know where the point is going to stop on the other side. So there's where I'm going to have a stop. For now I'm just going to say OK, and then rebuild, and you can see my slope is updated. I do have a ramp here, but the ramp keeps going all the way for the full 10 feet that I had it, but I know my adjustment's only going to be right here. So I'm just going to use a regular polyline to target where I want the ramp to end, and that way this landing that's on this piece right here will basically stop wherever I have this line. You could, if you wanted to, use this as a width and elevation target there for that lane, if you wanted to control the ramp height from there. Then you would kind of get into a little bit of a weird spot because it wouldn't be as automated. You'd still have this front part automated from the surface, but then the back part you'd still have to adjust manually. But it's up to you on how you want to control it. So let's go ahead and add in a quick polyline there so that we can target the ramp and make sure it's going to be in the right spot. I'm just going to use here the endpoint of here and the endpoint of this one. And then we'll just click on that corridor one more time, and I'll go to Edit Targets, and the region that I'm going to be in is the new one I just made for the ramp. And I'm going to say, well, on my width target, I'm going to go with left, and I have them labeled for the landing, basically, is where the landing starts. So I'm going to say, nope, I want ramp. So I want the end of the ramp to be located right here. So I'm going to say select from drawing, and then we'll take that polyline that's there. Hit enter, we select our polyline, okay, okay, and then we should pull the ramp back here, and then the landing will go back to the other spot once we rebuild that corridor. So there we go, we have our nice little ramp. Let's have a look at that in 3 dimensions here. You probably want to throw some labels on to the ends. There's some automatic labels that were done. You'll probably see them in the next drawing when I switch over to that one. So that's basically the workflow. Here it is in 3 dimensions. You can see here's that one little feature line that we used for creating those curb ramps. So whenever this gets updated up and down from the rest of the corridor, the ramp will basically follow. And there's our nice little ramp. If you did like that, I would recommend taking our intermediate corridor class, which has a ton of information. Here's a link below, or you can just email me at the end of the slide. I'll tell you. Some of the things we will include is, again, importing those sub-assemblies into your latest Civil 3D, how to create multiple regions. If you want to, we can do parking lots for multiple corridors and multiple baselines, how to do the cul-de-sacs, how to get alternative volumes. There's another way inside of just AutoCAD itself where you can get solids from these corridors. So you can actually have real objects now for these things. We explain how corridors are created, how surfaces are made, best ways to do intersection, what if you have to do intersection designs manually, what are some typical troubleshooting errors that happen inside of corridors, how to use offset assemblies and marked points, using these tools, which are awesome for filling in corridors that a lot of people just don't even know are there. But if you ever had to match properties or command for corridors, it's basically up here. It's called match parameters. It'll match the targets for you and the assembly, so you don't even have to figure that out. The bow ties are new to 2018. Teach you how to clean those up. We also teach you how to build a corridor off of a corridor off a corridor, which is a new tool that came out inside of 2018. We show you how to basically show hatches and feature lines of the way you want your corridor to look, and turn off those links if you don't want those links going across. Conditionals are a huge thing. We teach you basically, most people model like 4 different ways in order to do something. We teach you how to do it in one, and Civil 3D will automatically make those choices. This one's for modeling basically driveways along a roadway without having to put in regions and all that other stuff. It saves a lot of time. And this one is for conditions on what happens if you grade out 5 feet and you can't find a 2-to-1 or whatever it is. Then I want you to put in a retaining wall, so that way you'll do that. And we also teach you how to use the APWA. I just showed you how to do the curb ramp one. Super elevation's a big one in there. Doing cross sections, and most people aren't even aware that there's a cross section tool that will not just generate the multiple cross section views, but will generate sheets for you in the sheet set manager, and it will automatically put in title blocks and stuff for you. How to label right-of-ways, how to project other objects on there. how to create your own subassemblies. We go through all the subassemblies, even the ones that we were talking about, the new ones earlier, and quantity takeoffs. So how do you get various tables to do materials or volumes along those corridors, and how do you get different reports and stuff like that. So if you would like more details, just give me an email and I will let you know.